Welcome. In this video, we are going to discuss sleep disorders. Now, we don't have time to discuss all of the different sleep disorders, so we will discuss insomnia, narcolepsy, night terrors, and sleepwalking. So by the end of the video, you should be able to describe what insomnia is, explain narcolepsy, and then also know what is so unique about night terrors and sleepwalking. Insomnia is probably one of the most common sleep disorders in college students, and it is associated with inadequate sleep. Now, while most of us probably have an idea of what insomnia is, we typically think of it as the inability to fall asleep. While you're sitting there, you're tossing, you're turning, it's 3 a.m., it's 4 a.m., you just can't go to sleep. However, it's important to point out that it's also considered insomnia when someone wakes up in the middle of their sleep cycle and can't go back to sleep. So someone who wakes up at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning and hasn't had a full 8 hours of sleep and cannot fall back asleep. That's also considered insomnia. There are many different causes. Some include noise, stress, pain, diet, medication, certain disorders, having a dependence on sleeping pills or alcohol that could prevent an inability to fall asleep. If you need sleeping pills or the alcohol to go to sleep, it's difficult to go to sleep without them. And shifts in the circadian rhythm can also result in insomnia. So again, that jet lag, shift work, things like that. Here are some facts on insomnia. So about 35% of the adult population experiences insomnia. 40% of people with insomnia also have some sort of mental health disorder like anxiety or depression. So sleep disorders often are comorbid or co-occur with a lot of different mental disorders. There is research out there that suggests sometimes the sleep disturbances precede the mental health disorder. So these statistics mean that over 35 million people in the United States have comorbid insomnia and mental health disorders. And insomnia can make disorders like anxiety and mood disorders worse. So it's important to seek treatment for any mental health disorders as well as sleep disorders. And as we've discussed, sleep is important in your health, so it's important to get an adequate amount of sleep. Sleep apnea is another one that's fairly common in college students, but even more common in older individuals. So sleep apnea is a disorder that's characterized by the inability to breathe while sleeping for a prolonged period of time. So it's characterized by small periods during sleep where the individual actually stops breathing. And this could go all night or it could be just a portion of the night. It's different than insomnia because the individual is sleeping soundly and doesn't always know that they're waking up or that this is happening to them, and their brain remains in the earlier stages of light sleep. So this means that people with sleep apnea aren't getting the deep sleep and the REM sleep that they need. They're also having little periods throughout the night where they're not breathing, which means their brain's not getting oxygen. So there is some neuronal loss that goes along with sleep apnea. It's debated whether the neuronal loss precedes the sleep apnea or the sleep apnea causes the neuronal loss. But it's important to go and seek help if you think you have this, or if you're sleeping next to someone who has a lot of snoring or wakes up like that, it's important to have them seek treatment. So the consequences of sleep apnea would be sleepiness during the day, impaired attention, depression, and sometimes heart problems. Potential causes of sleep apnea are genetics and hormones, old age, and obesity. So with obesity, that kind of puts pressure on the air passages when you're laying down to sleep. So that can cause it. Old age just kind of causes those muscles to weaken. And then, of course, genetics and hormones are things that are out of our control. Studies have also shown that people in places with higher air pollution are at a higher risk for developing sleep apnea. So this is one of the treatments for sleep apnea. It's called a continuous positive airway pressure machine, or a CPAP. And although this looks kind of daunting, right? It's a lot of stuff. You can take it with you. I have a friend that has one and he takes it camping. It's somehow battery operated. But I've heard that they've created some sort of machine that's very similar but much smaller. So just before recording this video, I decided to add in a slide on night terrors and sleepwalking. Because when you're in the classroom setting, a lot of times this is one of the questions that students will have. Well, what's a night terror? Well, what's sleepwalking? When does it occur? So night terrors are different than nightmares, right? So night terrors or sleep terrors, when a person has a night terror, and it's more common in children, there's this feeling of panic or dread during sleep. And so they often, kind of bolt upright with wide open eyes and this look of fear and panic. They might be screaming. You can't wake them up. They might be attempting to speak, but their speech, you can't really understand it. And it doesn't really make any sense. And that's because part of their brain is still asleep and part of their brain is awake. Physical signs include sweating, rapid breathing, an increased heart rate, and they can last anywhere from 1 to 10 minutes. They begin in childhood and often decrease with age. Factors that can contribute is a younger age, sleep deprivation, medications, stress, fever, or other sleep disorders. And this primarily occurs in stage 3, which is our deep sleep. Sleepwalking is another disorder that's more common in children, but it can occur in adults. And people basically perform anything from simple to complex activities while they are still asleep. Talking, sitting up in bed, walking to the bathroom, consuming food. So my dad was a sleepwalker when he was a child. And so one of the stories that I heard was that they lived out in the country and in Nebraska, farmland basically, and they didn't have an indoor toilet at the time. So they had to go out to an outhouse. So his mom heard the door open in the middle of the night, just assumed someone was going out to the bathroom. Well, time goes on, and she didn't hear anybody come back in. So she went outside to find my dad out there asleep, sleepwalking, shoveling snow. So sleepwalkers typically have little or no memory of the incident due to their altered state of consciousness. Although their eyes are open and their expression is kind of like their eyes look dim and glazed over, the episode can last anywhere from 30 seconds to 30 minutes. But the idea is that both with night terrors and with sleepwalking, part of the brain is still awake. So in sleepwalking, it's the motor areas and the visual cortex that are awake, even though the rest of the brain is in a deep sleep. And again, this is occurring during stage 3, that deep sleep. Students also often ask about sleep paralysis. A lot of you may have experienced sleep paralysis at some point. And that's another time when your body is in that transition between wakefulness and sleep. It's typically thought to occur during REM sleep when your pons are inhibiting the postural muscles so you can't move. And you're dreaming, so you have this kind of like a dreamlike phase, or haze that you come out of. And so you see the lights and you might have some emotional aspects to it. But what's occurring really is that while your brain is trying to wake up, your part of your brain is still asleep. And so you're in that in-between stage. And so that really is what sleep paralysis is. Those pons are inhibiting the postural muscles during REM sleep, but the rest of your brain is waking up. Thank you for listening.